Nyajong, hello, welcome back to my channel. Thank you for being here if this is your first time. My name is Bao and I started this channel to share my life and story about being Hmong, Christian, and divorced. I'm going to talk a little fast because my phone doesn't have a lot of storage, so I want to get as much as I can in this video just to catch up with you guys. So last video I left off at just newly arriving at his family's home and being surprised by the welcome committee waiting for us. So I didn't mind that there was a welcoming committee. I was pleased by that. But what surprised me was what was in the hands of the two uncles by the door. One of the uncles had a boiled chicken, and the other uncle had a black umbrella closed. Um, so seeing that, I knew what was expected and what was about to be done, and I was not happy about it. So growing up Christian, I am not unaware of the non-Christian rituals and the shamanistic beliefs in calling for blessings from dead ancestors and or living. I'm just not familiar with the very details of it, but I am aware of the ritual and the practice. So, as devout as my father was as a Christian, as much as we were involved with the church, my father also took us around to the non Christian communities, and we were also just as involved. My father believed in being well rounded, and so we had that kind of experience. If we were invited to partake at someone's parties, we would just observe and respectfully watch them do their rituals and say what they needed to say. But if ever the food and the plate is set before us, then we would just pray over our food before we eat it so that we can enjoy the festivities with our hosts and hostesses. So I'm not unfamiliar with it, and it doesn't bother me, for them to be doing it because that's what they practice. But I was not agreeable to it being done to me because I felt personally that it was going against my faith and in what I believed very strongly in. And so, being, early 20s, still very much deep in my faith and very strong, and just coming out of having done so much for church, this was definitely a shock to me. And so, I kind of looked at him like, what's going on here? Like, you told me that your family is Christian, and I didn't expect this to be waiting for us. And I think he might have said something along the lines of, "Oh, it's just a formality. It doesn't mean anything. They're elder uncles. Let's just let them do what they want to do. It doesn't mean anything." But actually, it does mean something. It means a lot. To his uncles, it meant a lot. And, to me, it means a lot, just in the opposite direction. And I later, came to understand that it meant little to him either way because he wasn't a very strong Christian, which I was led to believe he was. And he wasn't also a devout practitioner of the shamanistic ways. So to him, it didn't mean anything either way. And so, that was also another shock to have found out after the fact. So I think we went out there, the uncles greeted us. What was I to do, right? Either go along with it or fight like a banshee and run screaming the other direction. That wasn't going to happen uh, as a new bride. So I went through with it. After the chicken waving over our heads, the umbrella was opened, and we were to go underneath it together, enter the house, and walk with it over us until we reached our bedroom. And in the ritual, you are to leave this umbrella opened for 3 days in the room that you would share. I think that when we got into the room, I remember just throwing the umbrella in the closet and leaving it in there. I was really upset, and he could not understand why I was upset, but I was very upset. I, like I said, I thought about taking the next plane and leaving because I completely felt duped. I felt lied to. And if there was one thing that I was taught in Sunday school, in Sunday services, is that Christians don't lie. That was very naive of me. I I don't know why I was so innocent in that kind of way. But I was taught that Christians don't lie. We shouldn't lie. And so I practiced my life not lying. And when someone tells me that they're a Christian, I take them at face value and I expect them to follow or fall underneath those expectations as well. And, as I came to learn, rude awakening, not every Christian practices the way that I did, and Christians can indeed lie. So, moving on, we spent about 2 weeks there. It was so brief, I don't remember anything. And then in 2 weeks gone by, we made that trip to Minnesota. We were young and I was excited. I was ready to start my new life. I was ready to get the ball rolling on the plans that we had laid down for us. Him with his JD degree, ready to help the community. And I would jump back into college, finish my undergrad, and then go on to my master's in psychology. And together we would be this power couple that could be full of knowledge and just selfless and serving and add and be an asset to this larger Hmong community in Minnesota. So we get there, and something else that I didn't expect, to extend very long is that in the Hmong culture, you sometimes uh, are expected to live with your in laws until such a time that they would give you permission to leave the home and go out on your own. And if you weren't staying with your in laws, then you could go to relatives and just kind of like bunker with them for a few months until you got on your feet, and then on your way you go. And not coming from a very large family, that's not something that my father had talked to us about, that he had impressed upon us that it was something that was an option at all for us to do as kids. As we got older, we were taught to just always rely on our merit. We work hard and we use what we earn, and that's it. My father taught us not to borrow, not to be in debt. And I sponged all that in. So we got to Minnesota, and then as time went by, it became kind of apparent to me that I felt like we were overstaying our welcome at certain relatives because we were relative hopping. And I think there were 3 different homes. I hope that was only it that we had stayed at before we finally moved out and got our own place. And, in looking back, I'm so grateful to these relatives. If you're watching, I thank you. I know who you are. I remember who you are. And I will always remember you in my heart, fondly and with graciousness at your open hearts to let us in. I did not know that you were kicking your children out of their bedrooms to make room for us. I did not know that you had to set up, you know, refurnish or whatever you had to do to accommodate us, and that should have never happened. From 2 educated young adults in this country to have to do that in this day and age. If we were living in Laos, I can understand that. But here in the US, where opportunities are in abundance, and we were taught and raised here in the Western, mainstream, I didn't expect to encumber you. And so I deeply am sorry for the inconvenience. But I am so grateful to you all for your kindness, and I will never forget that. So we finally moved out, and 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 then the most terrible thing that could happen to any new bride happened to me. And bear with me because this is the turning point of my life. This was the turning point of my marriage. So, when we were living with the relatives, everything was great. Everything seemed great. We were bonding, we were getting to know each other. We were just out wandering the town a lot, learning new places, restaurants, and the ins and outs of the Twin Cities. And we were just having a great time. It was summertime, the winter hadn't hit yet, so we didn't know what that was like. So everything was nice, you know. But out on our own, it was very different. And I came to see him for someone that was completely different than what he had portrayed to me over the course of emails and phone calls and the long distance courtship. And I did not know what was happening. I did not know what was happening. I didn't know what I was going through from day to day. And I was just very confused. And I got more confused as the days went on. And so let me just jump into what happened. So, um, unexpectedly, we had conceived. And so I was carrying our first child. And I was working, I had gotten a temp job for this corporation. And so I was traveling to the other side of the city to work and then commuting all the way back to the east side. And he could not find a job that was within his expectations. He could find um, jobs, he could find work, but it just wasn't the work that he had expected to get, you know, fresh out of college with a JD. Nothing was available. And so I had not impressed upon him that I expected him to go right in and get into a law firm. I knew enough that you have to start from the bottom. I had expected to start from the bottom if I had finished my undergrad. And so I didn't expect him to jump right in and make those money figures that he had expected to. But I did not know that that was his expectation at the time. So here is what I noticed, and here is what I saw. So I commute 45 minutes to an hour to the other side of the city to work, and I come back, and he found a job locally on the east side there, so he could go to work and come back, a lot shorter of a commute. Well, one day I came home and he had walked off his job. He had walked off his job and he was home before I got home. And I was really surprised and I said, "Whoa, why are you here? What happened?" And he simply said he had quit. He was tired of standing and being told what to do, and he quit. And I was pregnant. I was very pregnant. And I computed what he said, but at the same time, it didn't make sense to me because we were newlyweds. We were now expecting a family. We have rent, we have utilities, and I'm working a temporary position that they could let me go at any time as well. I found the job through a temp agency placement. And so I was like, okay, all right, just look for another job. Um, but you know, it was a while before he found another job. And then one day I came home, um, and of course he was home. um, and I thought I would check my emails. And so I went to the computer and wiggled the mouse, and there before me was his information. And I'm just gonna say it. I'm sorry if this shocks anyone, but um, in front of me was a secret email with communications with other women. And as I sat there and my breathing, I could feel it like becoming shallow and my heart dropping. I forced myself to read the communications that was going back and forth between him and this woman. I think there were maybe a couple other names, but I didn't read those because the first one that was open in front of me was just so captivating because I was in shock. I think I was going into shock. I didn't know what was in front of me, what I was looking at. And so there were pictures of this woman, you know, um, and several emails. And I finally realized that he is having an emotional affair while I'm at work. Pause.